Okay, everyone, it is officially 8:30 p.m. Let's grab our seats. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Because of Code Blue, we've been relocated in this room temporarily. It's one more week, maybe. We don't know until next week, depending on the temperature, whether we'll be in here or not, but it always works great for us. So if you have hard of hearing, like me, sit up front. The front row seats are all empty. We don't put a sound system in here. It makes it much more intimate. I think it's pretty good. Anyway, with that in mind, we're going to bring up the world's best chairperson, Kara. Let's welcome her in.
Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Kara, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Kara. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. and speaker at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first names only?
Ken Apple.
Ken, welcome.
Hi, I'm Victoria, and I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome, Victoria.
Hi, Karen Alcoholic.
Karen, welcome.
Julie Alcoholic.
Julie, welcome.
Hi, Teresa, alcoholic.
Welcome, Teresa.
I'm Pete, I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad y'all are here. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with the working knowledge of the 12 steps and willing to sponsor please raise their hands? Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street. Doylestown coffee is at 6:15 p.m. We have meeting list and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations. All CDs are available free of charge. We have a YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. Now I would like to introduce a really good friend of mine, Nick, and he's going to come up and read Just for Today prayer of recovery. Let's give Nick a warm welcome.
Good evening, my name is Nick, I'm an alcoholic. The Just for Today prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And now with that, I have Michelle to come up and read the 12 steps.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Michelle.
Okay. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'd like to introduce my friend Brian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. This is the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help others, alcoholics, to achieve sobriety. And with that, Kara's going to come back up here. She's going to introduce our speaker for tonight. Thank you.
The seventh tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining any outside contributions. At this time, I'd like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book CDs, events, and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, the most important part of the meeting. I'd like to introduce a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Let's all give Andrea L. from New Jersey a warm welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Andrea, and I'm an alcoholic. It is only through a loving God and the 12 steps and traditions as they are outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Phenomenal sponsorship in you. I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since April 2nd, 2004, and for that I am very, very grateful. So thank you. Thank you. This is funny, right? So my birthday is March 3rd, and my sobriety date is April 2nd. So it's like my birthday comes around, I'm like, I'm old, right? And then I'm like, I don't want to admit my age, but then my sobriety date comes around, I'm like, I'm almost 19, right? I'm like, like I'm all excited, right? Like, and like, we become like children again, because like the half counts again. You're like, I'm 12 and a half, like you just want to count like every minute. like what is going on here, right? It makes me laugh, and it's just a very reflecting time for me, like every year I'm like, oh, first of all, my mother had this saying, right? And it was like, life is like a roll of toilet paper. It goes faster as you get closer to the end of the roll. And like, it is so true, right? Like, I blink, it's like Easter, I sneeze, it's Christmas, and then like a whole nother year's gone by, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, but it's like, she was old. And now I remember when I was a child, she was my age, and I thought she was old, and then I'm like sad again. And then I'm 19 again right now. Like, but so I appreciate it so much being invited out here. It's always an honor. And I've heard a lot about your group. And to me, there's nothing in the world like walking into AA at its best. Like, I was greeted very well when I came through the door. And there's a bunch of smiles. And you guys, like, it could just tell, like, you love being here. I will tell you, this entire time that I've been sober, I have never once fallen out of love with AA, right? Like, I think it's disgraceful to call it a pink cloud, because it's God's grace. I have loved it every minute, and it doesn't mean it's all been good times. It doesn't mean I haven't endured losses and just life in general. It just means that I've loved it here every minute. I haven't forgotten what it was like. So we'll go through that, right? What was it like to be me? So I grew up in northern New Jersey in like this neighborhood where I lived on a cul-de-sac where the community pool is and everybody knows everybody. And we had a phone book that not just had like a phone book, it had like everybody's name and their birthdays in it, right? Like it was a community. And I have one older sister. She's 20 months older than me. She's the best big sis in the world, right? And like two parents who loved me, and I had everything I needed, and I was safe and I was loved and I belonged. And yet, that skin did not feel right. Right? Like, I'm not a situational alcoholic. I'm like a true believer that I was born with a disease. And until I got to you when I was 32 years old, I had no idea what was wrong with me. I just knew that like tomorrow was going to be a really busy day for me because I was going to take care of all those responsibilities tomorrow. But today, well, we're already drinking, right? You know, so like we're just going to add that to the list. Some people call themselves functional alcoholics. I wouldn't really say that about myself, right? Like, I was just getting along. You know, we hadn't gotten too low where we were on a lot of radars yet, but we weren't like, you know, people were like, well, I had the house and the job and the car. Oh, no, we didn't have those things, right? We didn't have a lot to lose. We didn't have a lot. We had a lot to gain, though, still. So I'm growing up in this neighborhood, and my parents are first generation United States from Sicily. So they're strict, right? There was rules in my household. They were not my friends. It wasn't like, you just go. Like, my mom would call your house. If I was coming over to make sure your parents were home, it was like, embarrassed. I'm still mad at her. Okay, I'm still very mad. Still mad at her. So my sister and I can't remember the exact day. She probably does, because my sister's like the keeper of truth and all this happened in our lives, and I got CRS, and I'm not supposed to swear here, but I think you know what that means. I can't remember anything, right? So we decided, like, I can remember it, like the day we decided to stop telling on each other and like join forces against our parents. We're like, oh my God, wait, let's start doing this together and see where it gets us. So there we are. I'm 15, she's 17, and we come up with the perfect lie. And we're going to the party, right? We're going to the party. It's got like college people at it. And we show up, and when I was younger, I looked older. So we get to this party, and I told everybody I was 18. And there it was, my lover, right from across the room. I walk in, I drank 2 of everything, right? You know what people are like, I drank like a lady? I drank like a lady for 2 minutes, okay? And then the rest of my drinking was done like an alcoholic for the remainder of my career. There was no pinky out for me. There was just more. And I know that it wasn't the same thing that I was drinking all night, because I threw up many colors that evening. Lots and lots of colors. And my mother had this thing. They were strict, but they also knew that she always told us, if you were responsible enough to call me, I'll ask no questions, I'll pick you up, right? I'm lying on the side of the yard at this illustrious party. My sister comes up to let me know that our mother's on her way to pick me up. I was like, why would you ruin my good time, right? Like, I was like, why would you call her? I would have never called. Like, my sister would have done really well without as many rules. I just would have started drinking faster, right? Like, there was no, like, you know, give them a little, what is it? It's like, give them a little leeway, maybe they'll land on their feet. That wasn't me. Diane would have done great. I would not. So we get back to the house. My mom can ask no questions. We get back there, and there I am sitting on the toilet. My sister's brushing my teeth for me, right? And I go to bed. And she wasn't going to let me sleep it off. So, you know, she wasn't going to ask questions, but I wasn't going to sleep till 10 a.m., right? There we are up in the morning, and I'm assessing my evening, right? And I was like, oh, my God, I was pretty. And I said all the right things, and it was funny, and it was just like a great social moment for me, from my view, right? From the outside, I probably just looked like some train wreck of a child throwing up everywhere at somebody's house, right? But it did not matter. But I also know this happened that night. I went to go lie down in the back room of that party. And if somebody else hadn't walked in, I would have lost my virginity to something that I can't even call rape. I just asked him if he had a condom. And, there was opportunities for me not to be a virgin up until that moment. It was a moral decision for me to be a virgin. And the second I added alcohol to this body, I just didn't care. I still feel like if I could hold on to my moral compass and have alcohol take away the rest of it and differentiate between the two and pick and choose what I wanted to keep and still be a good daughter and show up for that job and not be a jerk and be a good friend, but still get that comfort and ease with alcohol, like who knows where life would have taken me. But that's not the case, because I drink and it all goes to the wayside. My moral compass goes to the wayside. The person I thought I was going to be one day went to the wayside. The goals, the dreams, the aspirations, the career, the relationship, like anything that I wanted for myself after I found alcohol never became important. Not important enough to stop. I didn't see any of it as losses. I didn't see any of it as stunted growth. I just saw it as like my way to feel like I was pretty enough and smart enough and said all the right things. And the social lubricant. Well, let's be honest, I didn't get out to a lot more parties after that day, right? Because the mom's now on to us. But I went to school to George Mason University. It's 4 hours away and 4 states away from home. And I am naive. I mean, I grew up in the neighborhood where everybody knows everybody and the phone book's there with all the birthdays next to it. And like, that's it. And I get dropped off in Northern Virginia in the station wagon with the wood paneling on the side, right? And I remember my parents pulling away, and I was free. I was free to do whatever I wanted. And so I met my roommate. Her name was Ann. We all went out to a party that night. I got home Sunday, right? Like, I used to joke around and be like, I'm like downtown Julie Brown. I don't know if you guys know who that was. Like, I wouldn't go out without my sunglasses. It could be 10 p.m. They'd be like, what are you doing? I was like, don't know, right? Like, that's, right? Exactly. What am I doing, right? We're going to find out. Maybe together, maybe not. Depends on who has the best offer later on, right? I just know where I'm going now. But, like, I was off to the races always. And I just, God, do you guys remember Dazed and Confused is a movie? And one of the characters in there was like, you know why I like high school girls? Because I keep getting older and they stay the same age. Well, those are my friends, right? Because I keep getting older and I'm still doing the party scene, but the people I went to college with are now like having relationships and they're getting careers. And I just had to keep finding younger and younger and younger people to keep living my like college lifestyle. Yeah, well, I would call it a college lifestyle if I went to class. That was part of it. That was definitely not. I had like 2 1.41 GPAs in there, a semester off to find myself, right? And then during that semester, I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll wait tables. I'll just hate it so much that I'll definitely refocus into college. Oh, no, that did not happen. Oh, I loved it. I found my people. And I found a very conducive lifestyle to what I cared to do, right? Like, and I did 5.5 years plus summers at George Mason University. About 5 years sober. Well, we'll get back to what happened, but this is a funny story. About 5 years sober, I finally called them up, right, so that I could pay the fines so they'll release my diploma. Because, you know, if you steal from the library and you write all over the walls and markers, well, doing you know what in the dorm rooms, like that. If you owe money to the university, it will not release your diploma. So I called them up because now I'm doing good, right? I'm making some money. And I was like, what do I owe you? They're like, you never graduated. I mean, it's like, because those last 2 classes over summer school, I'm pretty sure we failed those, right? But we were already, I lived in Virginia for 11 years. I moved 15 times, right? So it's like, I was not the greatest roommate in the world, you know? Like, I had roommates be like, Andrea, we think you have a problem. And we called the landlord and they let us take you off the lease, so you gotta go, right? And that was not that didn't stop me. That was just another day, right? I've been fired from restaurants 5 times. 5 times. I was like, the first time hurt, the second time I was like, whatever. It just like rolled off my back. Nothing was ever so bad that I had my like light bulb go off moment. So there I am, I'm at school, right? And I'm just living down there. My mom called it my 11-year party. And it's true, it was. So I was, like we were saying, I was irresponsible. But the problem with me, actually I thought it was a blessing. The problem with me was that under a bad circumstance, the best possible outcome would happen for me when things weren't so great, right? So it was like I would never have the full repercussions to my actions. And I was charming and it was a lot of fun. So you just kept being a friend of mine, even though I would have just like, I'd stab you in the back. I'd be like, yeah, we're going to go out later, but then I would like leave the bar with the better option later. And you'd just be like, where did you go? I'd be like, sorry, you weren't invited, right? Like, I was not reliable. I wasn't considerate, but it was fun. These 2 dimples got me into a lot of trouble and out of a lot of trouble. So here's one good story for you. Summarizes like my life. I'm working at the bars. Surprise, right? And I went to go get my car inspected. And if you're missing a lug nut, they won't pass you for inspection. So I failed inspection. And I would go out to the bar and I would be like, I failed inspection today. They're like, oh, so what happened? I was like, I'm missing a lug nut. They're like, well, you're going to go get that lug nut, right? I was like, yeah, I'll go get that lug nut, right? Sure. Next day. People would be like, Andrea, did you get the lug nut yet? I'd be like, tomorrow, right? Well, you know what happens when you fail your inspection? You can't renew your license and you can't renew your car insurance either, right? Tomorrow. People were like, Andrea, we're begging you, please go get that lug nut, right? Like, it was like they were invested in my story at this point in time. And then, lo and behold, one night in 1998, I'm out driving after I've been drinking. I'm speeding. I am barefoot, and I get pulled over by the cops. If I can leave you with one tidbit of information, it is not to go to jail barefoot. Okay, please don't do that. And I get pulled over, suspended license, no car insurance, dead tags, and they take me to jail. And in Virginia, they release you at midnight. And the group of friends that I had at this point in time, right? Most people, I know a lot of people who that was their moment. They're like, oh my God, I have a DWI. Like this, like it opened their eyes wide. Now, I had friends that when you got released from jail, they would have a release party for you at the bar and they would have drink specials in your name, right? Like, so they would come pick you up and the Andrea release party would be happening. Everybody would be at the bar waiting for you and you just became part of a club, right? Like, those were my people. So yeah, no big bright light for me that day. But what happened was, because I'm living my illustrious lifestyle, and I'm living like day to day on money, was that I didn't have the $200 to pay for my bail. So they let me out on my own recognizance, but I had to go see a PO. So a week goes by, or no, like next day I have to go see him, pee dirty, for 3 substances. 2 are non-conference approved, and one of them's drinking. A week goes by, he goes, we'll come back in a week. I come back in. Do not pee clean again. Yes. And now at this point, you know when you don't even believe your own lies, right? Like when they're just so bad, but now you've made your bed and you have to lay in it. And you're like, oh, I'm sticking with my story, right? I'm pretty sure that I told them that my roommates might have sprinkled like cocaine in my cereal. Okay, right? But I was like, I'm sticking with my story, right? At least now it came out of my mouth. We can't back down, right? There's a battle of the wills going on with me and this PO. I had to come back a week later, and I peed clean. No, I did not. Okay, if you believe that, I have some land to sell you somewhere by the swamp, okay, right? I peed dirty again, right? Now they're like, you need to surrender yourself to the courts on your bench warrant. Don't come see me until you've done that. So what do I hear? Alkalogic? Don't come see me unless you surrender yourself. So I was like, you know where I live. You can come pick me up. I'm not going, right? So I don't go. I show up at court for my court date, and they can't find the bench warrant. So instead of having to go pay my $200, I walk over to the window, and they're just like, we can't find you in the system. I go, well, that's a shame, right? And they go, why are you here? And I said, I was the second shooter on the grassy knoll. It gets worse. They're like, why don't you come inside? It's not a revolving door, right? They're still trying to look me up backwards, forwards, the social security number. I was like, sure, right? Now I'm in there. And they're like, seriously, why are you here? I was like, I heard you got good coleslaw, right? Like, I was like a terror. And they had to let me leave. And I got home, and this is my best thinking. I was like, piss 33 times, save $200, right? Like, that was my life. I was like, oh, look at me, winning, right? Like, that was how my life was going. It's like, that story, the lug nut, people still bring it up. I'll talk to them once in a while. They're like, that lug nut. I was like, I know. But it was like, I just got by. If I really got what I deserved, I wouldn't have gotten away with as much as I got away with. And I thought it was such a blessing back then. There's no parallel universe. We'll never know, if I would have hit my bottom sooner. So there I am, my illustrious career. It's 2000, late 2000. And my sister lives in California. She has a career. My mom works at a hospital. She's got a career. And my father wakes up with a fever one night in end of November. And he just can't kick it. And they just didn't know what was wrong with him. I came home for Christmas, and he was just like, my father was like Paul Bunyan, man. The little kids used to call him Big Man Joe, right? He was like a human jungle, Jim said. He was just tall and big and broad, and he would carry my sister and I around on his shoulders. And by the time I got home for Christmas, he was just losing weight. He was weak, just couldn't kick this fever. They had still been testing. They still didn't know what was wrong with him. And it was spooky. I got home, that was the first Christmas where I wanted to die on Christmas morning when I was being given gifts. I was at that point in my illustrious career where being loved was getting pretty painful. That's a hard place. Receiving people's love, having people still see you through the possibility of who you can be and knowing you're falling very, very short of the ideal. So I go back to Virginia, and it's now February, and they finally give me a call at the restaurant. There's no cell phones back then. And they say they finally figured it out. He has cancer, but he should make it. And they're going to give him his first round of chemo. My mom calls me. She goes, can you come up and take care of him for a week? Because my sister has a career, my mother has a career, and waiting tables, and they didn't want to over or undertake care of him. He was just a very proud Sicilian man. So I come up for a week, and he is just a shell of who he used to be. It was so painful being there with him, because I got home on a Sunday. Wednesday was the first time I could finally get out and go drinking. But I hadn't had a sober day since I went to school. I hadn't dealt with life on life's terms at all, and in a sober body, with a sober mind. I have the emotional, maturity of a 16-year-old girl, and there's my father, the apple of my eye, and my mother, the person who got in my way, right? I wasn't a mean drunk. Some people just are just mean drunks, right? People don't love being around them. I was great when I was drinking. I was a monster in between drinks. That was my problem, right? People miss having a glass of wine with me. I'll tell you that. But my mother was the person who would stand in my way, because there would be me, my mother, and that feeling of ease and comfort that comes at once from taking a drink. I didn't have to drink it. Watching you pour my drink, I felt better. Watching them fill up that glass, I started feeling better. And that was the problem. And I was so cruel to her. So at the end of the week, I got my bags packed. I'm ready to go back. I'm going to go drive right to the bar, meet my friends. We're going to have the Jägermeister out on the bar with my Captain Morgan's and Coke. And my mother asked me to stay a second week. And then I made her beg me. And I made it very clear that I was at home taking care of her husband for her. And she should be grateful. And that second week, the irritability was so palpable. I was a monster to this woman because she stood in the way of me being able to get to the thing that would make me not have to feel everything that was going on. In the end of that second week, I had my bags packed. I was going to drive right to the bar and get my Captain Morgan's and Coke and my shot of Jägermeister. And he took a turn for the worse. And we couldn't even get him up. He had a call out from the bathroom. We had to call an ambulance to go bring him to the hospital. And we were just like, what is going on here? He's supposed to be fine. You told us he's going to be fine. And they just, they couldn't give us any answers. But on Wednesday, they came in the room and they said, if you need to call anybody, you should call. And we were like, my mother couldn't make the calls. So I went to my cousins, poured a Jim Beam, called the family. Everybody was a snowbird. His mother was in Florida. His siblings were in Florida. My sister was in California. And she was the first person to make it back to New Jersey. And I picked her up from the airport Friday morning, March 2nd. And I brought her to the hospital, and I took my father's hand, and I told him I love him. But my birthday's tomorrow, so I'm going to go to Virginia and spend that with my friends. And I left. And I left. And at 5 p.m., I knew what that phone call was, and he had passed. And I look back on this, right? And it was the best I could do. Given the circumstances, if I had to do it all over again with the emotional maturity of a 15 or 16-year-old girl, I was incapable of being there when he died, I would have ran again, I think. And I don't know. And they read the promises at a lot of meetings. You see them in the big book. And they're talking about, you will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it, right? Those are tall orders. Those are tall orders. And that haunted me after I got sober. I never really grieved him. I would cry once in a while. I would just be like, God, if I could just hear his voice one more time, if he could just call me monkey one more time, right? But I was off to the races. You want to give an alcoholic a really, really good reason to go get good and drunk. And I drank for 3 more years, but I did it under my mother's roof. And I did it knowing that she doesn't like to be alone, and she was lonely and scared. And I just manipulated her. I knew she would never, ever have the audacity to kick me out. So I had a full refrigerator and a car and a roof over my head and a garage spot. And I just was like, what are you going to do? Well, early 2004, my mother goes to one Al-Anon meeting. Learns a little tough love. Comes home with a piss cup. We all know how I do under those circumstances. I know, right? Do you need me to say it? I peed her, right? So no, we didn't even get to the piss cup because I tried to talk her out of it for a half of an hour, backing my way towards the bathroom, trying to make out my story. And she had told me already that if you don't get your stuff together, I'd been at outpatient, doing the outpatient shuffle. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, go out Thursday night, piss clean by Monday. Well, this was a Friday, so let's just say it wasn't going to work, and she kicked me out. And I am going to tell you right now, if you can't tell, I am soft suburbia. I am not a street girl. I am not meant to live out there in the elements, right? So I was I got scared. I had no fight left in me anymore. I couldn't conjure up one more lie. I couldn't look in her face one more time and see, not disappointment, the fear. I'm drinking, and she's at the doctor's because she can't sleep, and she's the one on sleeping pills because I am ruining her health. And people are like, oh, I'm not hurting anybody. That is the lie that we tell ourselves. I stole her peace of mind. I stole her health from her. And God, wouldn't it have been just so convenient if she could just care a little bit less so I could just keep living my life, right? Like, so it was like, that's just on you. So there I have to go back to, she gave me the weekend to find a place, and I go back to my outpatient on Monday. And I have to tell my therapist there, my counselor, that, I wasn't really sober the whole time. You know what? She already knew. I was like, how is that possible, right? Everybody else in the class bought all my BS, but the counselor knew the whole time, right? I thought I had just had everybody snowed. I did not. And we found me a bed at the Salvation Army, right? I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be under a bedwetter named Martha. I was talking to be her girlfriend, I know it. Like, I was like, I'm never gonna make it alone out there, right? But somebody at outpatient that night was living at Doylestown. It was a sober boarding house in Dover near us. And they're like, why don't you come by with me and we'll see if there's a bed available for you. And we did, and I met this guy, Mike Frank, and it was my beginning. I met him Tuesday, moved in Tuesday night, and went to a house meeting Tuesday and Wednesday, and went back to outpatient on Thursday, and Friday night I went to my first AA meeting at this place called Union Hill. Union Hill was like a drop-in center, right? It was a little raucous, but it was just what I needed. I was living like downtown Julie Brown. It was a 10:30 p.m. Friday night meeting, and after the meeting, I was like, we're all going out, right? Because like, I live the nightlife. And we all went to the diner, and I just fell in love with AA immediately. They just took me in, warts and all, right? My life started that night. They did like camping trips. I was manic, right? Like, it was like a chainsaw. Like, you could see smoke come off my jaw. I couldn't shut up. I didn't know what a boundary was for my life, right? And I'm on this camping trip. I'm like a month sober. And this girl, Trish, she just sees me like coming over, right? I look like Pigpen. You can just see like the muck coming off of me. And instead of rolling her eyes or like wondering when I was gonna shut up, right? She just patted her blanket. She was, come sit down next to me, right? Like, it was just like AA at its best. I don't know what would happen if people just kept rolling their eyes. But you guys, when people remember the responsibility pledge, and they don't treat AA like Match.com or their little social circle, and you remember that we are here to reach our hand out to the still sick and suffering, like, that's what happened there, right? Because we have no right to treat these places like for our own little devices. I try to remember every time I walk through these doors that I'm going to sit there and I'm going to pay attention to you and give you the respect of my attention, and I'm not going to have my phone in my hand, and I'm not going to be talking to the person next to me. I am going to learn how to be a human being 1 hour at a time in these rooms, because this is about our lives. This is a lifestyle, right? This is about recreating our lives. And we start to be able to do that by not drinking 1 day at a time. But that's how I learned how to become a worker amongst workers. Remember, I got fired a few times out there, right? We didn't clean up right away. I got fired from a job about 2 years sober. Thank you. We had bigger fish to fry. And becoming somebody who didn't have such massive expectations of what the world owed me, and just learning to put in my best no matter what. And if I didn't like my circumstances, instead of sitting in a constant complaint and then giving you what I thought you deserved, but taking no actions at all, well then, you know what? The world's gonna give you your answers. And it took that one last firing, thank you very much so far, for me to realize that I am the captain of my ship, right? If I have God, AA, and you guys, that I can start making decisions before they're handed to me. But I learned that here, 1 hour at a time, sitting in a room with you guys. And so it's like, what has it been like for me? Oh man, I came in here, I get sponsees once in a while who, they don't I'll take that under consideration. I was like, I don't know what I don't know what to tell you then, right? Because I said yes. I had no fight left in me. I came in here with a yes. You told me to get a sponsor, I got a sponsor. You told me to get a commitment, I got a commitment. A year sober, my sponsor, she was great. She goes, hey, we're going to go to district. I was like, what's that? She goes, don't worry about it, just get in the car. I was like, and then she's like, you're going to take a service position. I'm like, what's that? She goes, don't worry about it, just get in the car, right? I was like, and there I am at district, like a year sober. And I'm still just amazed at that, how much fun we were having in here. I'm going to tell you one thing, you're bored in AA, that is your own fault. That is your own fault. You're like, I don't know what to, then that's on you, right? World's going to come and bring you some of the decisions for you if you're just in here complaining about the lot in life you've gotten, because there's a million things to do in here. We were at all the dances, I'm on the camping trips, now I'm at district, right? And she's like, they put out all the open positions, and I see public information, and I was like, that looks easy, right? There was not a lot of altruism in my decision, so I was like, sure, I'll do that. And there I show up at my first district meeting, and then I went to Area 44, that's the northern New Jersey. I'm at this meeting the other people in public information, finally figure out what it is. And I'm in sales, and a couple other people were in sales too. So we went to high school after middle school, after everything. We'd go speak to the health classes and the auditoriums, because we'd speak to the general public about what AA is and what it isn't. And we had no opinion on outside issues and whether you drank or not. We just wanted you to know that if you or a friend that you know is having a problem with drinking, wants to stop but can't, there's a place to go. And we will take you in wholeheartedly. And you will be treated like an adult if you have questions. We did the fairs at school, resource day. It changed my life. I went and spoke at what's the Al-Anon for children? I went and spoke at an Alateen meeting. They invited me, I was at one of the fairs, and I'm in a room with 12 kids between the age of 16 and 7 and 8. And they were waiting for me to give them the magic words to say to their parents on how to get them to stop drinking. And I was like, there's no magic words, but it's not your fault. I cried in my car for 45 minutes after I walked out of there, because it was so real what we do to our families at that point. I don't have children, so I didn't know what that perspective was. I'm the only alcoholic in our whole family. Surprise, right? So I had no experience with that. It was one impactful experience after another. Do you know what my favorite thing is, right? Don't wait for it to feel good to do the next right thing or to take some advice, right? People give you advice and you're like, that doesn't feel like I want to do that, right? I'm going to wait till that feels right to actually take that action. I'm going to tell you right now, it's called a leap of faith for a reason. Say yes. Do something different. Get a different experience. And then have something to look back upon to be like, oh my God, right? That actually worked. It's called a spiritual experience, right? What does that feel like? It feels like, oh my God, right? It's mostly in hindsight for me. And then the next tough thing comes up and you get some new advice again. You're probably like, I really don't want to do that. But the last time I tried something different, something kind of good happened, right? You just keep building and building and building upon that. But you got to say yes that first time. That's the thing, right? When they're saying, don't leave until the miracle happens, the miracle is you saying yes sometimes and doing the things you don't want to do, though a lot of people are saying that's kind of what you got to do. Repeat, repeat, repeat. I have been brought chunks of truth about myself so many times, right? Not once. I had a sponsor who called me once, and she goes, Andrea, I need to have a conversation with you. She goes, my fear is that you'll love me less if I tell you this thing, but I love you too much not to say it. I was like, okay, right. I have women and men in my life who love me too much not to say the things that will help me be more free. I'm incapable of seeing the truth from the false. And it doesn't go away when you get sober, but it gets easier when you're navigating it with people who love you too much not to say the things to you. But what you do with that, those are the decisions we make in here. So, I mean, I was on fire. I love service work in here. I love reading the literature about our history. I'm blown away that two people met, and all these years later, we're all sitting in a room here, that the doors are still open, that we haven't burned this thing down to the ground is my biggest, like, I'm in awe. What do they say, like, the steps are there so we don't kill ourselves, and the traditions are there so we don't kill each other, right? Is that the saying? I've done tradition studies, because they can all just be applied to me. You know, like, it's like every group ought to be autonomous. Well, I should be autonomous, right? Like, what you're doing is not my business. Your opinion of me is not my business, right? I have a hard time being like, my big joke is that, like, I don't really have a hard time believing that I'm a child of God. I have a very hard time believing you are too, right? Like, that's where the problem lies, right? And then I get into the yeah, but. And I have a friend, and I'm going to swear one time, he goes, yeah, but is the mating call of the screaming asshole. Okay, I was like, and now every time I hear a response, he's saying it, I'm like, oh my God, it's the mating call. And I try and say it in more mature ways, but it's still a yeah, but, because I still think I'm right, and I'm trying to get my way. No, it is the mating call. And it's like, man, when I hear myself get into a yeah, but, I'm like, ugh, just stop. So I've really just been, I've been blown away by what I have been able to go through in this program. There's the people in my life, my sister, my mother, are my greatest playing ground for all the amazing things I've learned here with you. Like, I learned something new about me, and then I bring it into my relationships, and we get to, like, hang out with these new things that I know about myself. My mother, because she is old-fashioned and, you know, very much in my life, we would butt heads, right? Like, my hearing of her wasn't always from her intention, right? And it could be like, it's cold outside, grab a coat. And I'd be like, I'm a grown woman, right? Like, I'd be like, I know it's cold, I have skin, right? Like, I would just get, like, so mad. But it would be like any little thing, right? Like, because, like, heaven forbid we went out to have to go, like, clothes shopping with her. I'd be like, that's right, right? Like, I would just hear this woman from a place that was absolutely not her intention. And then I would yell, and then I would get mean, and then her feelings would get hurt. And then I would be mad at her because she's sad, and now I feel like a jerk, but it was all her fault. Repeat. And I was talking to my sponsor one day, and she's like, all right, we're going to do something new, right? Because this isn't working for you. It hasn't worked for you you're like 37 years old now, right? And so we came up with my new line, and it's so funny to learn something like this here. I would tell her if I would start feeling like the rage, start building up about the umbrella or whatever, and I would just look at her and be like, I'm just not hearing you from your place of intention right now. And I'm not saying we can't have this conversation. I'm saying, can we try again tomorrow? And she goes, are you trying to tell me to shut up? I was like, no. We only say that to each other in AA to get each other to shut up. No, I'm joking. I'm sorry you feel that way, right? But we had a new experience with things, because trying the same thing over and over is called insanity, right? I learned that here, and that's what I was doing. I was still just trying to be right, and I was still trying to justify my actions, and yet I'm hoping that things were different, because I don't want to feel like a jerk, but I wasn't willing to change anything, right? Like, this is all about a new life in here. And then, God, she would also hand out advice, because she is my mother. And I learned to look at her and just be like, when I was getting all riled up about the umbrella and it's cold outside, I would just be like, I want to thank you for the unsolicited helpful advice. And I would smile, and she would start to giggle, and she'd be like, if I don't tell you, who am I going to give all this wisdom to? And we would just diffuse a moment. So it's like these little things I learned to do in here. It changed our relationship so dramatically. And then about 6 years ago, I remember I do a sponsorship group every Monday night. My sponsor, a bunch of us sponsors, we all get together, and it's like the most brave place on earth to me. We just really speak our truth there. we speak our truth because I believe that the two most powerful words in all of AA are me too. And if you are playing it small and you're not really telling me how you feel, I don't get that glorious moment where I could be like, oh my God, me too, right? And then I feel more human and I feel more connected and I feel more alive and okay in my skin. So there we are, and I made my declaration to people because if I tell myself things in my head and I don't say them out loud, I'm not really gonna come to fruition. It's like me thinking I'm gonna remember things and not put it in my calendar. It's just not gonna happen, right? And I said I wanna be more gentle to my mother because I also realized that I was like holding people hostage because I don't love getting the advice and I have a quick tongue and I can be short. And instead of her asking me to go downstairs to help with something and being like, why don't I offer? Like, why do I find it so hard to be generous of heart in my closest relationships, but I would take a shirt off right here inappropriately and give it to you. But I have a hard time doing it in my most intimate relationships at home. And so I made my declaration. A week later, I show up and I start telling them a story and I'm like, and then she said this and I said that, Mom, my sponsee sister goes, Andrea, a week ago you came in here and you said you wanted to be more gentle to your mother, but it just sounds like you're trying to be right. And I was like, right? A true friend is the person who knows the song in your heart and sings it back to you when you've forgotten. That's who we are. And she sang my song back to me and my stinky little attitude and reminded me of the things I said I wanted to be and the person I said I wanted to be and stood by me shoulder to shoulder and helped me to remember who I am because I had forgotten. And I started being more gentle to my mother and offering to pick up that suitcase before she had to ask. And about 3 years ago, my mother looks at me one day, she goes, "You've been really nice to me lately." She goes, "I'm not dying, you know." I was so nice to her, she thought I thought she was dying, okay? Like, you want to talk about a win? I was like, Kush, thank you for noticing, by the way, right? Like, and my mother and my whole family, this is not a compartment of my life. They are in it with me, right? You get me, you get my whole family. You know, my cousins, my aunt, you're just a part of the family. I don't know how to make friends, I know how to make family. And so, like, I got to tell her about the things that I was trying to do and that she was my favorite person to explore with all my newfound amazing things that I would learn in AA in that relationship. And so in 2020, when my mother started not feeling well, and she got cancer, I got to take care of her. I didn't run away from the feelings that came up with watching my favorite person on earth just start having little pieces of her picked away. And it was like everything that happened with my father was the exact opposite of what happened with my mother. I got to take care of her. I didn't have to. You just change that language in your head. I don't have to take care of anybody. I get to. It's a privilege. And I got to take care of her with my sister. My sister, when I did my amends with her, I was newly sober, and I asked her the question, is there anything you need to tell me? She goes, "I never told you anything because I knew you wouldn't care." It's like, that's deep. She just knew that I wouldn't care. Please don't bring me your Debbie Downer information. You're just like, I'm here for the party. And my sister and I got to take care of this woman as a team. I got to ask her all the questions. You have the opportunity to do anything. Whether you take advantage of it or not is up to you. And I was 17, almost 18 years sober. I was 18 years sober. No, 17 years sober. Got sober in April. She died middle of April. And I looked at her and I said, "Are you scared for me?" Because she knew she was going to die at this point. "Are you afraid for my sister? Are you scared for me?" She goes, "No, your sister's going to be okay." She goes, "I am scared for you." And she started to cry. And as any good alcoholic, I was like, oh my gosh, she thinks I'm going to drink. She thinks I'm going to ruin my life. And she started to cry. She just said, "You're just such a mama's girl." because she knew, like, that I would be devastated without her. I just miss her. I miss everything about her. I miss that there's no next. There's no next. There's nothing else that I can do with that relationship. It is done. And I just, like, I have zero regrets. There's not one thing I needed to clean up with her at all. I only just miss her. So I'm like, man. And then grief. And boy, we don't love feeling feelings here. And somebody said something to me. And they said, grief is just love with no place to go. Right? Like, God, that was like, that changed it all for me. I said, well, then I do not mind this, because she's worth every moment of this grief. It's just I'm missing my landing patch. That's all. And it was okay. And I got to change the most profound thing about myself immediately after she died, because I stopped telling people, no, I'm good. No, I'm okay. No, I'm fine. I'm okay. No, I don't need to come over. No, you don't need to stop by. I just started bringing the yes. I've never been more profoundly free in my life. I've never been more profoundly close with my friendships, because I took down this massive I'm fine wall and I stopped saying no. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come over. One of my girlfriends had a newborn baby boy, and I would call her in shambles, and she would be like, do you wanna come hold the baby? And I would be like, I do. I do wanna come hold the baby. And I would show up at her house in shambles, just like making my way to the front door, and she would just hand me this newborn baby, and I would cry and snot all over this kid, and he saved my life. And now he's in daycare, right? He's sick all the time, and he cries and snots on me, and I catch every cold he's got, and I just owe him one, and it's okay. But I've never felt more sure of who I am. And you know, right before my father died, right after he died, food's comforting to me. I got chubby after my father died. And I looked at my mother right before she died, and I said, oh, God, I deserve to lose my appetite this time, right? Like, we had a good sense of humor on us. It didn't happen for me again. I'm here to tell you, in case somebody here needs to know, I got chubby again, right? And you know what? Nobody cares. The size of my thighs are not going to dictate the worth of who I am. Not one person stopped loving me. Nobody stopped being my friend. The only relationship that changed was with my clothes, right? Like, otherwise, nobody cares. There's worse things out there. It is not going to dictate my worth. I love who I am. And my first sponsor, she was my grand sponsor, now my sponsor. After I got real chubby, after I got sober too, because I love food. It's comforting. There's worse things out there. And I would cry in her driveway, and she goes, you know what, Andrea? She goes, in God's world, you're perfect just the way you are right now. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And maybe, just maybe, the way you look right now, somebody can hear you. And if you lost that 40 pounds, maybe they wouldn't be able to hear what you had to say because of what it looked like. So please stop doubting God. Right? So right now, you know what? Had to buy some new underwear. It's okay. It's like, right? It's all good. I'm going to close with this. There was this great person at this group I used to go to. I can't remember her name anymore, so now it's just like my story, right? And she used to talk about that song "No Rain" by Blind Melon. And there's a video. And it's this little girl in like a bee outfit, and she's running around town just like looking for her people, and she's going to all these different places and they're not there. And at the end of the video, there's a field. It's like all these people in these bee clothes, right? And she runs out there and they're all just dancing in this field. And you are my bee people. And that's what it feels like to be in AA for me. And I thank you so much for having me come out. Thank you.
Let's thank Andrea one more time. Thank you for coming out. Thank you so much.
18. No, I'm kidding.
Customary for us to form a line and thank our speaker
Yes.
personally when we're done. We got kind of like a logistical put away today. These metal chairs got to go back in the rack on the other side of the room, but 20 of them have to be remained in the corner of the room against the wall, and all the wooden chairs stay. So if you want to help, great, beautiful. If you don't want to help, that's okay too.
Right.
Next week, Fire and Brimstone. Tim H. is coming down from Boston. Don't miss that. We got a nice way of closing. If you care to join us, don't forget the meeting after the meeting, please. Let's take a moment of silence. Do with it what you'd like, and if you care to join us, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Keep coming back.